Mona Jaya, all of you I don't see. Thank you so much for being here at the Bhakti Center via Zoom. So, reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 9, Chapter 24, text number 66. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudiraye Nastapraeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naistiki. This chapter is entitled Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Jato gata pitri grihad brajam idhitato. Jato gata pitri grihad brajam idhitaro. Tato hatva ripun sutta sakshatani krito rudaraha. Hatva ripun sutta satani kritorudhara utpadyateshu purusha kratubi samije. Utpadyateshu purusha kratubi samije atmanam atma nigaman prathayan janeshu. Atmanam atma nigaman prathayan janeshu. Reading the word for word, synonyms. Jataha, after taking birth as the son of Vasudeva. Gataha, went away. Pitri, Grihat, from the houses of his father. Vrajam, to Vrindavan. Edita Artaha, to exalt the position of Vrindavan. Hatva, killing there. Ripun, many demons. Sutta Shatani, hundreds of sons. Krita Uru Daraha, accepting many thousands of wives, the best of women. Utpadya, begot. Teshu, in them. Purusha, the supreme person who exactly resembles a human being. Kratu bihi, by many sacrifices. Samije, worshipped. Atmanam, himself, because he is the person worshipped by all sacrifices. Atma nigamam, exactly according to the ritualistic ceremonies of the Vedas. Patayan, expanding the Vedic principles. Janeshu, among the people in general. Translation by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, known as Lila Purushottama, appeared as the son of Vasudeva, but immediately left his father's home and went to Vrindavan to expand his loving relationship with his confidential devotees. In Vrindavan, the Lord killed many demons, and afterwards he returned to Dwarka, where according to Vedic principles, he married many wives who were the best of women, begot through them hundreds of sons, and performed sacrifices for his own worship to establish the principles of householder life. Purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. As stated in Bhagavad-Gita 15:15, Vedaischa sarvara aham eva vedya. By all the Vedas, it is Krishna who is to be known. Lord Sri Krishna, setting an example by his own behavior, performed many ritualistic ceremonies described in the Vedas and established the principles of Grihastha life by marrying many wives and begetting many children, just to show people in general how to be happy by living according to Vedic principles. The center of Vedic sacrifice is Krishna. Vedaischa sarvara aham eva vidya. To advance in human life, human society must follow the Vedic principles personally demonstrated by Lord Krishna in his householder life. The real purpose of Krishna's appearance, however, was to manifest how one can take part in loving affairs with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Reciprocations of loving affairs in ecstasy are possible only in Vrindavan. Therefore, just after his appearance as the son of Vasudeva, the Lord immediately left for Vrindavan. In Vrindavan, the Lord not only took part in loving affairs with his father and mother, the gopis and the cowherd boys, but also gave liberation to many demons by killing them. As stated in Bhagavad-Gita 4:8, Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya chaduskritam, the Lord appears in order to protect the devotees and kill the demons. This was fully exhibited by his personal behavior. In Bhagavad-Gita, the Lord is understood by Arjuna to be Purusham Sashvatam Divyam, the eternal, transcendental, supreme person. Here also we find the words Utpadya Teshu Purusha. Therefore, it is to be concluded that the absolute truth is Purusha, a person. The impersonal feature is but one of the features of his personality. Ultimately, he is a person. He is not impersonal. And not only is he Purusha, a person, but he is the Lila Purushottama, the best of all persons. Thank you so much. Let me chant some prayers of invocation. Yananjana Sanakaya Jaksum Militam Yen Tasmai Shri Chaitanya Manubhistam Stapitam Yen Swayam Rupakadamayam Dadati Sapadam Nanam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti-vedanta Swamini Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya-deshakarini Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pambulam Bharati Kirim Yatkripas-tamaham Bande Shri Gurun Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasindhubhaivacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Govinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram Here's one more prayer to Srimad Bhagavatam. Madhika Bando Matsangim Madguro Mahadana Man Nistaraka Madbhagya Madhananda Namostite. O Srimad Bhagavatam, my only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. This is a beautiful prayer to Srimad Bhagavatam, spoken by Sri Sanatana Goswami. That's interesting in this purport, Srila Prabhupada twice uses the term Lila Purushottama, which is not there in the Sanskrit, but it's a very, very beautiful term, which means the best of all persons. Often it's spoken in reference to Lord Jagannath, Lila Purushottama. So he says that twice. He also twice quotes a verse from Bhagavad-Gita, which is actually, scholars have said this is the most often quoted verse by Srila Prabhupada. Thank you for your nice words, Jamunajaya. So yeah, of all the verses Prabhupada quotes, and there are so many, this is the one he quotes the most, and he quotes it twice in this purport. So let me say this verse. Let me say the whole verse. It's Bhagavad-Gita 15:15. Sarvasya chaham hridi sannivisto mataksmitir jnanam apohanam cha vedaischa sarvairaham eva vedyo vedanta krid vedavid eva chaham. And here it is in English. I am seated, Krishna speaking, I am seated in everyone's heart. And from me come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. So he's seating in our heart. We can ask him, what do we want? Forgetfulness or remembrance, right? By all the Vedas, I am to be known. Indeed, I am the compiler of Vedanta, and I am the knower of the Vedas. So that's a very important verse that Srila Prabhupada quotes. So Prabhupada also mentions how to be happy in this purport, that we can be happy by living by Vedic principles. And he says the center of Vedic sacrifice is Krishna. He says the real purpose of Krishna's appearance is to show how to take part in loving affairs with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. How beautiful is that, right? And that reciprocations of loving ecstasy are possible only in Vrindavan. And how Krishna is the best of all persons, as I said, this Lila Purushottama. But wait, are you seeing a contradiction here? I'm seeing perhaps a contradiction, Srila Prabhupada. What are you saying here? You say that Krishna shows us how to be happy by living according to Vedic principles, and that the essence of Vedic principles is to know Krishna, according to the verse that you, Srila Prabhupada, quote twice in this purport. And then you say reciprocations of loving ecstasy are only possible in Vrindavan. So my dear Srila Prabhupada, what are you saying here? Is happiness possible in this world? It seems like a contradiction, doesn't it? So what I'm wondering, what I'm pondering here is, does it really mean that we can only be happy if we try to remember Krishna and try to share that love and reciprocation with Krishna, even in our earthly relationships, like the residents of Vrindavan do with each other? This is what I'm pondering. This is what I'm thinking. If we want to love, we have to love a person. We might appreciate a beautiful sunset or sunrise, but ultimately, if we want the fulfillment of love, we want to love a person. And here Srila Prabhupada says Krishna is the best of all persons, that Lila Purushottama. Sometimes Srila Prabhupada talks about how the astronauts go up in space, and then when they don't find shelter on another planet, they come down again to Earth. There's a story of some Russian cosmonaut who went up into space, and he's looking down at the Earth planet, and he's looking down at his beloved Moscow, and he says, "Ah, my beloved Moscow." So here he is flying in outer space, seeing things no one's ever seen before, perhaps, but he's still thinking of my beloved Moscow. You know? Yeah, so we're social beings, and Krishna is the supreme social being. And here in this purport, Srila Prabhupada says that the impersonal feature is one of the features of Krishna's personality. So it's not as though it's not there, it's certainly there, but it's a lesser aspect of his personality. And sometimes because we've been hurt in our personal relationships, someone I'm trying to love is acting cold and impersonal to me, not reciprocating in the ways I'd hoped, and I feel unsatisfied. So sometimes out of this frustration, I don't want to trust anyone. I don't want to enter into any personal relationship with any person. But the path of bhakti is a path of radical personalism. Krishna is inviting us all to his dancing party without any discrimination. Even if I don't know how to dance, even if I'm not the prettiest girl or the most handsome guy, everyone is welcome. It's a standing invitation for all eternity to all living beings of every race, every color, every ethnicity, every gender. And, I often remember what Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says in the foreword to the Brahma Samhita, which Srila Prabhupada quoted when he recorded that Happening album in New York. Krishna, he says, Krishna is the transcendental autocrat who is ever inviting the fallen conditioned souls, namely us, that's us, right? To associate with him through devotion or eternal serving mood. How beautiful, right? What a beautiful invitation we are receiving, but we don't RSVP. We just keep turning our back. We don't ever RSVP to that invitation. How rude, right? You're invited to an exalted, sublime, ecstatic party, but we don't even send an RSVP. And why is that? Because we've been burnt in personal relationships with imperfect persons. And we feel afraid that a personal relationship with Krishna, and we've turned away for so many unlimited lives, just hiding out and suffering in so many myriads of different species of life. So Krishna discusses this frustration in two places in Bhagavad-Gita, where he uses the term vitaraga bhaya krodha, which means being freed from attachment, fear, and anger. He mentions this in Bhagavad-Gita 2:56, but even more specifically in Bhagavad-Gita 4:10, he really unpacks this in the purport to that verse 4:10. And he addresses us really, really, I think very specifically. He addresses the people of the modern day. He addresses our existential angst, and he gives us hope, where he says, this is the verse, he says, being free from attachment, fear, and anger, being fully absorbed in me, Krishna says, and taking refuge in me, many, many persons like you, persons like us, right, in the past became purified by knowledge of me. And they all attained transcendental love for me. So here I am sitting in Washington, D.C., metropolitan D.C., and I'm thinking, this is impossible, I'll never make it. But no, Krishna's given me hope by saying here, many, many persons in the past, like you, Rukmini Devi Dasi, like you, dear Andrea Prabhu, like you, Jamuna Jaya, like you, Krishna. Many, many persons in the past have become purified and attained transcendental love for Krishna. So in the purport, where Srila Prabhupada really unpacks it, he talks about being disgusted and angry and foolishly taking shelter, he says, of intoxication and hallucinations, which are sometimes accepted as spiritual visions. Is he talking about New York City here? Or maybe he's just talking about the whole modern world, right? And he points the way out to this bhava, or loving ecstasy, of a personal relationship that's mentioned in today's purport, this relationship in loving ecstasy. And then Srila Prabhupada says in that purport, one has to get rid of all three stages of material consciousness. What are they? Attachment to material life. Second one, fear of a spiritual personal identity. And the third one is the conception of void that arises from frustration in life, right? Sometimes when I feel so frustrated and demobilized and depressed, I just want to go into a void, right? So these are the three things that we have to give up: attachment, fear, and the anger that prompts us to want to go into that void, which once Prabhupada said, there is no void anywhere in the creation of the Lord. I love that sentence. There's no void anywhere in the creation of the Lord. So we have to get with the program and come to loving person, right? Loving personality. Then Srila Prabhupada in that purport, he describes the step-by-step process to come to bhava, this loving ecstasy. Once when I was a pujari in Boston, I heard that Prabhupada said that without bhava, deity worship is just idol worship. So I became very desperate that, wow, I don't have bhava. So I guess all my worship of the deities is just idol worship. And then, yeah, Srila Prabhupada unpacked it, that you just follow the process, follow the step-by-step process, and then the bhava will come, right? So here in this purport, he's saying, the step-by-step process, take shelter of the Lord, be guided by bona fide sadhus, follow the principles of devotional life, and then gradually, that bhava, or personal loving ecstasy, will begin to awaken. In all of Srila Prabhupada's personal dealings, he exemplified this reciprocation of loving personalism, or what I call radical personalism. In New York City, on the Lower East Side, many people want to be radical, right? It's a very radical place, the Lower East Side of Manhattan. So we can meet them in that radical place, like Srila Prabhupada did when he walked those same streets of New York City, and exhibit this never seen before radical personalism, radical caring without discrimination, radical acceptance. I don't know if I've told this story here on this platform before at Bhakti Center, but there's a beautiful story. I don't know if you've heard it before, but it's worth repeating. The story of Srila Prabhupada at 26 2nd Avenue, when a really quite crazy young man came in. Prabhupada was lecturing from the Vyasasana at the front of the storefront, at the back of the storefront. And this young man walked right up in front of Srila Prabhupada's Vyasasana and said, I want to say something. No, I want to talk. And he was totally crazy, and everyone was shocked, and everyone was new, and no one knew what to do. No one, graciously escorted him out. They were all new and bewildered, right? And so he was just standing there sort of yelling like that. And finally, Srila Prabhupada said, all right, let us have kirtan. So then he led kirtan for about half an hour or so. And then, as was his custom, he had a paring knife, and he would cut an apple into pieces after the kirtan, and then he would distribute those pieces of apple to everyone present, because he would say that no Vedic sacrifice is complete without the distribution of prasadam. So in this case, what he did was he had the paring knife in his hand and the pieces of apple, and he held out the knife. This young man was, the whole time during the kirtan, this young man was like sitting there right in front of Prabhupada's Vyasasana with this menacing look in his eyes. And everyone was at the edge of their seats, non-seats, they were sitting on the floor. But everyone was like, what's he going to do? Is he going to jump at Srila Prabhupada? What's he going to do? Is he going to try to harm Prabhupada? So then at the end of the kirtan, Prabhupada with so much faith in Krishna, and certainly he must have been praying also for this young man. He held out the knife, the paring knife, and the apples to this young man and gave him the choice. Just like Krishna in Bhagavad-Gita gives Arjuna the choice. Okay, Arjuna, now you've heard everything. Now what is your decision? What is your choice? So Srila Prabhupada's holding his hand out with a knife and the apples to this crazy, insane person. And everyone's just got bated breath. No one knows what's going to happen. Is he going to choose the knife and stab Prabhupada or someone else? Or is he going to choose the grace of the apple? And everyone's waiting. And then finally he chose a piece of the apple, and everyone took a deep breath. This is Prabhupada's radical personalism, radical acceptance, radical hope giving on the Lower East Side of New York. I think it's a very important story. So to me, this is what Bhakti Center is all about, right? Come as you are. You're welcome here. And I was thinking about New York, and I was thinking, what does the inscription on the Statue of Liberty say? What is this goddess, New York goddess, the Statue of Liberty? What does she say? She's standing there with her torch, her holding up light, right? And she says, to all the immigrants who come from so many countries all over the world, right? Refugees from everywhere, looking for hope in their lives. And she says, give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to be free. This is the message of the Statue of Liberty, the goddess of Manhattan Island, right? Everyone is seeking that freedom, whether we're refugees to this country or not. Actually, everyone except the Native Americans, we're all refugees. So the gift of freedom that we receive in loving reciprocation with Krishna is the freedom of the spirit, when we meet the complete spirit, the personality of Godhead. And here's a very, very beautiful, important message about freedom that Srila Prabhupada says in his purport to Srimad Bhagavatam, 1st Canto, 2nd Chapter, 8th verse. Listen to this great little couple of sentences. Srila Prabhupada says, the need of the spirit soul is that he wants to get out of the limited sphere of material bondage and fulfill his desire for complete freedom. He wants to get out of the covered walls of the greater universe. He wants to see the free light and the spirit. And then once again, as I just said, he says, that complete freedom is achieved when we meet the complete spirit, the personality of Godhead. So again, this beautiful phrase, this Lila Purushottama. So in conclusion, this is my question, Srila Prabhupada, is there love in this material world? Well, yes, but it's just not enough to satisfy my achy, breaky, thirsty, famished heart, which is like a desert. In a desert, a few drops of water just won't do it, right? And in the desert of our famished hearts, we need an ocean of the nectar of devotion to even begin to quench our deep spiritual thirst. And the sadhus, the holy people, are like gigantic rain clouds that carry cloud banks of nectar to shower down sustenance from the ocean of devotion all the way across the sky to the dry desert-like places in our hearts. Just like Srila Prabhupada came across that Atlantic Ocean, right? Just like he came on a freighter ship, right? But he was like a cloud bank of mercy to shower down this nectar of love on all the people of New York and then the world. So thank you all so much. Are there any reflections or what was an important takeaway for you here today? Thank you so very much for being here.
Hare Krishna, wonderful class. I liked this thing that you said, how Krishna's invitation is there, but we're not always sending our RSVP. And I also like the 3 stages of material attachment. Attachment to matter, fear of personal relationship, and voidness, attachment to voidness. And I was reflecting about that thinking, yeah, sometimes life gets so overwhelming that we want to just go numb and go on the channel and tune out. And this is voidness. Instead of going to Krishna, we take to other things, and then we feel terrible afterwards. Every time we fall, and then we feel terrible.
Yeah, that's what leads to addiction and then hallucination, right? We go to that place of frustration. I just want to zone out. I want to, take some drugs or drink or void out in front of the tube or something. Or I want to go abuse someone if I'm angry. I want to just kick the dog or abuse someone else, right? So yeah, I think Srila Prabhupada really hits it on the head in that purport. Thank you so much for reflecting back so deeply. Thank you so much. Ananda Bihari Prabhu. Yes, Jamuna Jaya.
Thank you so much. And Ananda Bihari, great casting this week as we finish off the 9th canto. So beautiful, isn't it? Ganesha and Mother Rukmini, thank you so much. But what you just said about
banks of mercy, line up of cloud banks of mercy. You know.
Thank you. You are the agent of this beautiful series. Thank you, Ananda Bihari.
It's an agent of mercy, a secret agent. I love it.
Secret agent of mercy. But I love what you were saying about and I ran over to grab my nectar devotion as you were saying it, because I love that. I couldn't find the page fast enough where Prabhupada says that and I love the way he says it, where do we repose our love? We have so much love. And you were saying about it's not enough. Like this material world is not enough. And I love how he says that, but where do we repose our love? And there is a place to, like he says that, to repose our love, there is a place to put our love. And that's with Krishna, because that's the only place where it's big enough. And it helps us overflow into our lives. So thank you so much for reminding us of that. It's such a beautiful point.
Beautiful. Yeah, otherwise, if we have no place to repose our love, it's just floating around in outer space, like that Russian cosmonaut. You know, he's looking to repose his love in Moscow. But no, Moscow's just not going to do it. And all the wonderful things in New York City, it's just not enough. You know, what can you not find in New York City? But it's just not enough, you know. So we need that Lila Purushottama to repose our love there. And Prabhupada in Nectar of Devotion also in the beginning talks about that beam of light, of love. It just increases and increases until it reaches that place to repose our love. Beautiful. Thank you. Beautiful reflection, my dear esteemed dancing sister. She's in the dancing party. Are we going to join up? Come on. Here's someone who's accepted the invitation. What about me? What about you? You know, Jamuna Jaya is going to get to that dance before me. So let's get with the program.
Oh, no. You're at the dance party. I'm scraping at the door.
What else? Anyone else have any wise reflection?
Rukmini.
Oh, Hari. Oh, my dear Sarah.
How are you? Good to see you. So the story that you told of Prabhupada with that young man was so powerful. Just such a wonderful lesson on humanity and how to treat people, and you know, just knowing that you're continuing that message of radical personalism is just like that's where like I feel like we first really could see it, and my heart is so overwhelmed by the beauty of that and that story and how you're continuing that and teaching us so much how to be better devotees and just being better people in general. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you so much, Sarah. And I know this is what you're doing in your classroom every day as well. And thank you. Thank you for those radical persons who go out into the world and say, no boundaries. You are beloved. And this is creating the beloved community that Dr. Martin Luther King spoke about. So that's our mission in this Bhakti movement. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here all the way from Detroit or Oregon or wherever you are. Thank you. Thank you very much. Anyone else have any thoughts that they'd like to share?
Yeah, Krishna Drew.
Oh, Krishna Drew.
Hare Krishna, Rukmini Prabhu. I love that story of man as well. I'm echoing Sarah's words. Really appreciate you sharing it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. You know, imagine Srila Prabhupada's faith in Krishna. I mean, you know, sometimes I think that this was a suicide mission, that Srila Prabhupada came to New York. Sometimes people say only what's in Prabhupada's books, nothing else matters. But why did he come? Why did he get on that freighter ship and come to New York suffering heart attacks and seasickness and then crazy people once he got there, and starvation. So this is his suicide mission that he came, that he took on for us, for you and for me. So this is Srila Prabhupada's faith. Imagine, could I do that? Could you do that? Hold out a knife and a piece of apple to an insane person. So this is his faith. And I always felt that he was feeling our pain, that he was praying for us and feeling our bewilderment and our pain and our angst as he was crossing that ocean. I often think of like a mother turtle. You know how a turtle lays her eggs on the sand and then goes back into the ocean, and how she's meditating on those eggs to hatch while she's swimming around in the ocean. So I always think of that Srila Prabhupada is like a mother. Sometimes we say he's the father of the Krishna consciousness movement. I think of him as the mother of the Krishna consciousness movement, just meditating on hatching these eggs in our hearts, these little eggs of Krishna Bhakti. We don't eat eggs, but we are kind of little eggs trying to hatch in one way. What else? Anybody else have any thoughts that they'd like to share?
Hare Krishna, Rukmini Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, dear
What
Paula
a beautiful
and Prabhu, Devi Prabhu.
What really resonated for me was just like bookends of, we can only be happy if we share our love with Krishna. And is there love in this material world, but it's just not enough? Like those just were such perfect kind of bookends to the idea that I always grew up with, like wanting to have that love, but growing up with such an impersonal kind of vision of God, because that's what I was raised with. And just not understanding that exchange was incomplete because I couldn't see God as a person. And that just that gift that Bhakti gives us of, again, the radical personalism, that God is a person, I'm a person, like we're all living beings are a person, and we can have that loving exchange with Krishna, and how we can continue to like pay it forward by having that loving exchange with others and kind of showing, like I love that story that you always tell about how Srila Prabhupada asked his young devotee to show others how Krishna loves them by his exchanges with them. And that always like resonates in my heart. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you very much. This is there in all the traditions of the world, and it's discovered by the mystics of all the world's traditions. Once a great scholar, Houston Smith, he said that the mystics are the impatient ones. So, if you look in Islam, the Sufi mystics or the Christian mystics, Teresa of Avila, Little Teresa, St. John of the Cross, these mystics of all traditions actually discovered that person and tasted the sweetness of reciprocation with that person. But in the, mainstream religions everywhere, even in Hinduism in India, everywhere, the rank and file people are, not getting it on that deep level. So here Srila Prabhupada comes to unpack and break open this storehouse that the Panchatattva says in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. They broke open the storehouse and they gave it to everyone without discrimination. They weren't considering who was a fit candidate and who was not a fit candidate. So this is materialistic religion. This is what Jesus Christ went into the temple and he just smashed everything. No, this is not about money. This is not about power. This is about love. So these are the mystics of all the traditions, breaking down those barriers, breaking down the discrimination that says, no, you're not welcome because you're this or that. You're not welcome here unless you pay me money. So, yeah. So it's important that we understand that this is the essence of all religion, not only Krishna Bhakti, but Bhakti by any name in any tradition, because it's like an underground river that is coming up in different places, like that river that, and then the oasis comes up in the deserts in different places. And what brings that reservoir up? The love of the great souls. So yeah, what else? There's some things in the chat. Let me see what's here in the chat. Okay, dancing party. Okay, thank you. Anyone else have any thoughts? about
Hare
joining.
Krishna. Hare
Yes.
Krishna,
Oh,
Mother
I
Rukmini.
should have known better, of course. That's the wise Gail. And
Well,
Athena has her hand up too. Haribol, my dear Gail. Gail, Devi Prabhu.
yeah, I just had to mention this amazing synchronicity that happened just now when you mentioned the tortoise who raises her eggs just by meditating on them. The synchronicity is that I was reading the Gita, and just like maybe half hour ago, I was reading that very reference by Prabhupada in verse 526. And I just couldn't believe that, I mean, it's not like we hear about that reference every day, and I just couldn't believe that like half an hour later, you mentioned the exact same thing.
Wow,
He mentions it in the context of the analogy that just as the tortoise raises the eggs from afar just by meditating, right? We can similarly, raise ourselves up, even though Krishna's abode is so far from us. Just by the process of meditation, this elevation can happen. So yeah, it was just amazing synchronicity. So I had to mention.
So much. That's so beautiful. And yeah, I think of Srila Prabhupada as that mother turtle. So he's saying we can also be turtles, and meditate.
Yes, yes.
So be that turtle, get the message, get the memo, become a turtle.
And I just happen to love turtles anyway, so it works. I have a few turtle knickknacks all over the place. So yeah, good reminder.
I used to always have turtles when I was a little girl. That's so funny. Thank you so much. Yeah, okay. Athena, what do you have to say?
Hare Krishna, Rukmini Prabhu, Dandavat Pranams. What a morning. Very well. I had written this in the chat box, but just to speak it, I loved the class, and again the story with the young man and Srila Prabhupada, that was very moving. But two nuggets that really spoke to me are one, that if there's no bhav, then deity worship is idol worship, and I feel like that's Krishna speaking to me, because recently my quote unquote my version of deity worship and my connection even at the altar has become a little more robotic. And you're right. It's like if the connection isn't there, then it's just this you could say it's like they're just like statues. They're it's, where is the connection? Where's the love? Can you see with the eyes, like actually through your consciousness? So that really spoke to me and just really bring me back into the focus. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yeah, we have to wake up, right? We have to become conscious and then become Krishna conscious, not robots. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Did you have another point, or that was it?
Oh, I did. Yes, I guess it was nice that you paused and commented on that. And then my last point, it also speaks to me so much, because I'll just share personally. This year, I did a lot of the personal growth, self-development work, which there's definitely a place for it. But my gosh, at the end of it, I mean, you're seeing all this. I mean, when I lean into something, I really lean into something. So I've done the work and everything, like the awareness and how you build better communication and relationship. There is a place, but my gosh, that quote unquote happiness is just a pin drop compared to the ocean of ecstasy one feels just being absorbed in spiritual life. And it really reminds me of what Raghu says. We have this God-shaped hole in our hearts, and as you mentioned, there is love. There is, you can derive some happiness in the material world, but it's not enough. The heart is not appreciate it's not enough for our famished hearts. And that just spoke to me so much. And I just, if I could say anything, everyone on this call, you're experiencing the highest happiness. Nothing in the material world, nothing in the greatest amount in the material world can compare. So thank you so much for bringing that point up.
Thank you so much for these really, really beautiful comments. You know, we can choose what we always have a choice at each moment. Do I want to go through my day like a robot? You know, actually, I am a robot, you know, I'm stone if I'm thinking like that. If I see the deities as stone, then really it's because my heart is like stone. So yeah, cry to Krishna and melt the stone heart and try to take those steps to awaken that loving ecstasy of bhava. It's our choice. We've come to the human form of life. Let's not throw it away again, as we've done infinite numbers of times. Thank you, dear Athena, so much, so much. Anyone else have any such wise thoughts as we've heard? Or shall we conclude here with the aspiration for loving ecstasy of bhava, to not be robots, to become the impatient ones, follow the path of the mystics. Okay, well, thank you all so very much. Thank you for inviting me, Ananda Vihari Prabhu.
Thank you, Rukmini Devi Prabhu. Thank you, dear devotees, for contributing to this class. Don't choose the knife, choose the apple like a turtle, like this. Choose the apple. Let the egg hatch. Stop kicking the dog. Those are my takeaways. I'm a simple person. I like when the takeaway can be capsuled in something that I can keep in my mind. So thank you for that. And
Thank you so
yeah,
much.
dear devotees, Rukmini Devi has a Patreon account page. It's in the chat board, in the chat box. Please, that's a wonderful way to stay connected to her and her beautiful offerings. Thank you very much. Again, have a beautiful day. Keep smiling. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Bhakti Center. Thank you, Ananda Vihari. Thank you all for being here. My great honor to serve you in this tiny little way. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Andrea. Hare Krishna, Krishna. Hare Krishna, Athena. Gail, Jamuna Jaya, Ananda Vihari, and all my dear friends. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.